Welcome to English Grammar Spot. This tutorial is about the present perfect continuous. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to form a present perfect continuous and when to use a present perfect continuous. But before we get started, it's good to know how to conjugate the verb to have. For the singular forms, I have, you have, he has, she has, it has. And for the plural forms, we have, you have, they have. Now let's get started. Let's take a look at these sentences. I have been working a lot lately. It has been snowing since Friday. Both these sentences are in the present perfect continuous tense. How to form a present perfect continuous? We use the auxiliary verb to have, the past participle of the verb to be, which is been, the base form of the verb, and ing. For example, I have been working all afternoon. You have been listening to the radio for the past hour. He has been sweeping the floor all afternoon. She has been spending a lot of money lately. It has been raining all week. And for the plural forms, we have been playing computer games all night. You have been searching for a supermarket. They have been watching the news all afternoon. Now we need to pay special attention to verbs that end in an E. For example, live, make, close and wipe. These verbs drop their E. Take a look at the examples. I have been living here for quite some time now. He has been making a lot of noise lately. They have been wiping the floor for over an hour. Please note that living, making and wiping no longer have an E. Now let's take a look at the present perfect continuous in questions. Again, we use the auxiliary verb to have, the past participle of the verb to be, the base form of the verb, and ing. Has she been talking about him? Have you been playing tennis? Have they been doing their job? For negations, we do the same, but we add not to the auxiliary verb to have, becoming haven't or hasn't. I haven't been listening to the news. She hasn't been waiting for you for over an hour. They haven't been paying attention. Now let's take a look at when we use a present perfect continuous. We use a present perfect continuous for activities that started in the past but have continued in the present. For example, I have been traveling for a few years, so I started traveling a few years ago and I'm still traveling. They have been working as a chauffeur, so in the past they started to work as a chauffeur and they still are chauffeurs. We also use the present perfect continuous for things that happened in the past, but it's not important when they happened, so we do not need to know the time when they took place. She has been visiting her aunt a lot. They have been repairing that car. So both these sentences lack time. We also use the present perfect continuous for things that are annoying. For example, I've been doing your dirty laundry all afternoon. They have been playing loud music all night long.
A common problem students have is understanding the present perfect simple and the past simple. Which one should we use? When should we use it? The good news is, although they can be confusing at first, they're actually quite simple once you understand their differences. Let's take a look at the present perfect simple first. The present perfect simple has three functions. We use it to talk about past events, recent past events, and unfinished states. The first function is talking about past events. To understand the past events function, let's use a timeline. So on the left, we have the past. In the middle, we have the present. And on the right, we have the future. The present perfect simple indicates that something happened in the past, but we don't know when it happened. We just know that it happened sometime in the past between the day that you were born until now. Let's use an example here using the sentence, I've been to Australia. This means that sometime in the past you went to Australia. Now, be careful of the difference between been and gone. Gone means that you went there, but you're still not back yet. Been means that you went there and then you left. And of course, we don't know when you went. It could have been last year or 10 years ago. So when someone asks you, have you been to Australia? It means, have you been there any time from the day that you were born until now? We often use never to emphasize negatives and ever to emphasize our questions about past events. So for example, have you ever been to America? No, I've never been to America. The second function of the present perfect simple is talking about recent past events. We can also use just, already, and yet for emphasis. For example, Mum, have you finished cooking dinner yet? Yes, boys, I've just made your favorites. And finally, the third function of the present perfect simple is talking about unfinished states. Just remember, we use for a period of time. For example, for an hour, for 2 days, for the last 10 years. And we use since for a starting point of time. For example, since last night, since 3 months ago, since the 1980s. Let's take a look at our timeline again so we can understand this better. On our timeline, we have the past, present, and future. The boy met the girl at a certain point in the past, and they still know each other in the present, which is during their date at the restaurant. But they have known each other for 2 weeks, which means they met 2 weeks ago. On the other hand, the past simple has only one function, that is, to talk about finished events where the time is known. In this scene, although the time is not mentioned, both the boy and his mother know the time of the date. The mother asked her son how his date was because she already knew that he was going on a date. Also, we can use just for emphasis that an event recently happened. So in this example, the boy could have said, "We just broke up." Now, let's take a look at the form for present perfect simple statements. So the form is subject plus have or has or their negative form plus never, just or already. These words are optional. Plus past participle plus whatever you want to write plus for, since, yet, or time words such as before, recently, and lately. Again, these are optional. Let's take a look at some examples. I've been to Australia. The subject is I plus have plus the past participle been plus to Australia. I've never been to America. Here we used never before the past participle. I haven't made dinner yet. Here we used yet at the end of the sentence. We've known each other for 2 weeks now. Here we used for 2 weeks now at the end of the sentence. Now let's have a look at the form for present perfect simple questions. For open questions, the form is WH or how question word plus have, has or their negative form plus the subject plus past participle plus whatever you want to say plus for. Now the for is optional. For yes/no questions, the form is have, has or their negative form plus the subject plus ever, which is optional, plus the past participle plus whatever you want to say plus yet or a time word. Again, these are optional. Remember, WH and how question words and for are for open questions. Ever, yet and time words are for yes/no questions. Let's have a look at some examples. Have you been to Australia? So we start the question with have plus the subject you plus ever plus the past participle been plus to Australia. Have you finished cooking dinner yet? Here we used yet. How long have we known each other for? Here we began the question with how long and ended it with for. So, to summarize, we use the present perfect simple for past events, recent past events, and unfinished states. And we use the past simple for finished events where the time is known.